Great. Well, thank you everyone for coming and joining us on your Sunday. It's great to see everybody. And I'm just going to go through a few quick slides to talk about, I'll talk about our agenda, which is on the next slide. I can go through that really quickly, show you that we got some feedback from our facilitators about session 1. And we also got feedback from some students who weren't able to attend for one reason or the other, and how we're addressing those issues. We are creating new team assignments based on that feedback and based on the fact that some of your teams had 2 students or very few students. So that's not going to work for this program. So we're reassigning teams and go quickly review session 2 and what to expect. That will be this Saturday, February 11th, and then open it up for any more questions that you have. So this is the session feedback. We had, after looking at the numbers and the Zoom reports and actually calling students to see what their status was, we had 57 students attend last week. And with the calls that we made, 7 of them plan to continue attending. The rest of them, we got voicemail or some other, no response. Or they said, I'm no longer interested or no longer available, I'm too busy.
You mean the students who didn't attend?
Correct.
Yeah,
right.
7 of those. Okay.
Correct.
Are you saying only 7 of the students who didn't attend got back to you in the affirmative?
Yes, and a lot of them just did not respond. Does that make sense? Like, yeah. So there were approximately 39 no-shows, and I think our committee member was able to report on 17 of them. Does that make sense? So so the rest of them, the remainder, we're still waiting. They may get back to us. They may still attend, which would be great. So going forward, we have this Saturday we have 64 confirmed attendees, including last week's attendees. Assuming they don't. I don't want to say drop out, but assuming that they don't show. I'm sorry, assuming that they do show. Anyway, like I said, how we're addressing the attendance issues, we're calling girls to confirm their participation. We're considering, I know that Sandy had mentioned that we're researching texting tools to maintain communication with this younger generation. Right, a lot of them don't necessarily use email as much as we do, so we're investigating that. We're going to take. It was someone's idea. I don't know. I apologize. I don't remember. Was it Maley? Was it another volunteer or member that suggested assigning larger teams with 8 students and 2 facilitators?
It wasn't me, but that's an interesting idea.
Okay, well, great. We took that idea and we're going to implement it. Part of the reason because we're doing that is just in case students drop out or can't attend one day and can't attend the other, we have enough coverage, right, to get the project done. I mean, this is a quick course, and trying to manage everybody's availability and busy Saturday schedules as a teenager, I think it's possibly more challenging than we thought. So we're assigning teams of 8 students and 2 facilitators. And we're suggesting if for some reason we did not do our job and provide you with 8 students, or if you have less than 4, we're suggesting you come back to the main Zoom room or request help. Remember, there was a button that said request help from your host to have you and your students reassigned, because less than 4 is just not enough to complete this project. And then our committee had a big discussion about if girls come and go based on their busy Saturday schedules, they attend one weekend but not the next, or they join your team late, like one of these girls that we haven't heard back from yet, they'll be assigned to a team, but the team as a whole gets to decide who they assist or what role they take. We can't we can't take responsibility for assigning them a role on a team that's already started working together and collaborating. So we're going to leave that up to you and your team of students.
And Shauna?
Shauna, I just wanted to make a comment. You said the facilitators, if your team has less than 4 students, come back to the main room to be assigned or ask for help. I would suggest that they come back to the main room so that we can move them.
Okay. Okay.
And Shauna, will you have some sort of way to divide up the responsibilities if you're going to assign 2 facilitators so that we aren't looking at each other wondering, okay, who starts what?
That's a good question. And when you say starts what, do you mean like starts the session or?
Exactly. For example, if there's going to be some discussion or whatever, and you said that we have some flexibility if the teams want to change their role or whatever. I mean, we shouldn't both be speaking at the same time. And that's my concern about having 2 facilitators.
Okay. Well,
So my suggestion is that when we know who the other facilitator is, that we are responsible for getting a hold of each other in advance of the session and work it out. I think it's too much responsibility to expect Shauna or somebody else to do that for us. I think we should just communicate with our co-facilitator and decide who's number 1 and number 2, who does what.
That's great. When will we know how to communicate? When will we know who that other facilitator will be and how to communicate with them?
we will have that for you tomorrow.
Great. Okay.
And email addresses, I believe when you submitted your volunteer forms, I'm wondering if you submitted your phone number as well. If not, we'll give you the contact information that we have, which is probably, I know we have email for sure. Yeah, and most of this, I think most of the all of the activities going forward is project work. So if you follow the facilitator activity guide and you follow the student project description document, that's exactly what the girls are expected to be working on. I mean, I think the only place where you might have that conflict of like who's talking, who's going to lead the session is at the beginning, like welcoming back the girls. You know, if there's any new students that joined your team, welcome them, do their quick intro, like someone suggested, and you know, see if they have any questions on what they need to work on, and that's about it. I think this next session is going to be, they might have the most questions, and you might have to provide them with some guidance on like what documents to refer to, because it's all there. It's all been documented. I hope that's helpful. Oh, here's some other feedback that we received, that the project is overwhelming, and that's how we're addressing that is to please explain to the girls that work outside of these Saturday sessions are optional, and that they should complete as much as they can during the Saturday sessions. I mean, I'm hoping that there's some overachievers in our group, and they do take some work outside of the class, and will be really wowed with their campaign simulation projects. And I really do hope that, but if they don't, and if they can't for whatever reason, it's okay. So I don't want them to feel the pressure either.
Shauna, you're from San Diego?
Mm-hmm.
And San Diego did the first iteration of this Gov Trek, is that right?
They did, yep. And the Oceanside Yeah, up in North County coastal. Mhm.
So, am I right assuming that the materials and the organization of this pilot, this statewide pilot, closely tracks your project, your local project?
That wasn't mine. Just for clarification, that was Kathleen Harper's and her branch. So
Okay.
so it was like Oceanside Vista and Carlsbad Oceanside Vista, COV. Mhm.
Okay.
And
I
it
guess I'm
tracks.
just
Oh, go.
wondering, if this syllabus closely tracks that syllabus,
Uh-huh.
what was their experience? Did the students feel overwhelmed?
I don't know that I can answer that.
Okay.
And you did change it, Shauna. I mean,
Right.
the project is different. So some of the fundamentals are the same, but the project, what they're actually doing is different. So I think that that's hard to answer.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, we're focused. I'll keep this brief. We're focusing more on the election process and like preparing yourself to run for office and learning about running for office more so than how to be a lawyer. So it's the content is different. And then we, as Kathleen Harper explained to me, like hers was different than our pilot, because our pilot, they're doing project work. They're doing the campaign simulation. In her pilot, they were more, I think they were more focused on critical thinking and problem solving
Okay.
from a legal point of view. So here are, based on what we just discussed, that there's 8 students and now there's 8 teams. What I did here was assigned facilitators that were available for the next 3 Saturday, the next 3 program Saturdays. And so these are for sure. And then what I'll do is I'll assign the second facilitator and have that to you tomorrow. I apologize, ladies, that I was not able to finish this before today, but for now, these are the 8 teams and the 8 facilitators. And please expect, if your name is not up here, please expect it tomorrow, or a message telling you that you're no longer needed at this point. And I thank you. I thank everyone for helping support this program. I do want to say that something really quickly. I teach a Stanford design thinking course to high school students and to young adults, 18 to 24, in my day job. And it's about how to think. It's designing a product or designing a course or designing a service that is innovative. So it's design thinking for innovation. And with that, that's what we're doing here. And I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. I mean, we're kind of, adapting as we go along. I mean, we put a lot of front end work into this program. We're not creating it from scratch as we're talking to you now, but thank God, right? But as we run into, as we run into issues, we're shifting and we're pivoting. And I appreciate your flexibility, because that's what design thinking is, or that's part of it. It's a big part of it. So thank you for being on this journey with us. And I really appreciate all of your support.
So Shauna, if I just want to restate this point that you made a little bit earlier. So tomorrow we'll send out a new updated list that has both facilitators for each room identified, and it'll include email addresses. So if you want to reach out to your co-facilitator, you can do that before Saturday. And we're going to use the same process that you'll go automatically into your breakout room with your students. And I have a plan for if you get stuck, if you come back to the beginning into the main room and you get stuck, I have a strategy to try to solve that for those. I think it was Tracy and I can't remember who else who got kind of stuck in the main room and were not able to go into back into their room. So hopefully that won't be an issue tomorrow or Saturday.
Sandy, is there a possibility to create a breakout room as needed? Like, for instance, if a team of 8 with 2 facilitator wants to break into 2 for the day so that they could have separate discussions, can we easily do that?
I don't know. I'll have to check.
Okay.
That is a good question. I was wondering that also. If our breakout room can break out further, does Zoom have that capacity?
I have to look at how it's been set up and whether I need to make any changes to make that work. I don't know off the top of my head. I'll have to investigate.
Because, yeah, that might make, if that's possible, I can imagine how useful that would be. So that the 2, let's say, pairs of girls can talk to each other without disturbing everybody else.
Right. Like in, not to compare Zoom to Microsoft Teams or anything, but in Teams, you can do that. You can have separate discussions. I don't really prefer Zoom, but it's what we have, and I'm grateful we have something.
Couldn't the girls decide to share each other's cell phone numbers, and they could actually talk offline, so they can accomplish the same thing, but just not doing it on Zoom?
I think.
And they could be doing it real time, even during the breakout.
Yes.
Frame.
So, for example, if they're working on the candidate and the person who, the communications director, are working on the speech, they could just talk on the phone and mute themselves and have those conversations and then get back together. Because I actually think,
I think so.
I think it's a really good idea, because in real life, I mean, it would be completely, if you're working on separate projects and you're trying to talk with a person, and well, 2 or 3 projects all being talked about at the same time in a Zoom breakout session, it would be very unwieldy, especially when you have just a little bit of time. You'd almost have to, if you don't have a separate breakouts or a cell phone, you almost need to allocate a certain amount of time to each one so they can actually have those communications in the breakout session.
Right.
So I'm just going to toss in a sort of reality check. I love the idea. We have to have an adult in the room. So we cannot spin off individual rooms with kids in it by themselves. We've made an agreement that there will be an adult present. And this has to do with, I'm sure you all read the anti-bullying policy, that it has to do with that, to just make sure that our kids are safe. So Shauna and I will talk about it after this session, what options we have to do that. Certainly, I'm pretty sure we can break out into 2 rooms. We just have to figure out how much time we want to spend with the mechanics of trying to do that versus having work to do, having time to work. So what I don't want to have happen is that we have all of the rooms reorganizing at the beginning, and it takes a while to do that, and that you don't have time to actually work. We can set that up ahead of time, but the problem is we don't know how many kids are going to show up is part of the problem, right? So we set up 2 rooms, but there are only 6 kids who show up. So we'll have to talk about that. Nancy?
I thought it just occurs to me, and that may be something to consider, and that is have maybe a breakout room with the same role students. For instance, maybe have all the campaign managers meet in a breakout room, and they might be able to get the same tips or instructions because they may have some of the same questions. And that may be one way to have a breakout room. Some of them may want to maybe even run ideas by other in the same situation. I know it's a competition, but sometimes that may be helpful to them. So that would be
Don't they have to have time for their team to coalesce around what they want to accomplish?
In this next session, in session 2, yes, that's what this session should focus on. And if they can get started working, that'd be great. But I hope that answers your question, Nancy. I'm Sandy. And then maybe we could do Nancy's idea next time.
Right, you have 30 minutes. Maybe it would be helpful to go through session 2 agendas so that we're talking about real specific how to make this session work.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question though, regarding, is it Aline Zanger? Aline, I hope I'm not butchering your name. Yeah, your idea about having the pairs of girls go communicate on the side with their cell phones, would it be considered staying with an adult in the room if they're still in the breakout room muted but talking on their cell phones? Can that be considered being in, would that fulfill the protocols?
Well, we'll talk about it. I don't think it does, because you can't observe the interaction. So if there's any bullying that comes on, and recognizing that the kids can work offline and have issues, but in a sponsored AAUW California sponsored event, if you've participated perhaps in Tech Trek, all of those breakout rooms have an adult in the room just to make sure that there aren't any issues. So give us an opportunity to talk about what your recommendations are outside of this meeting. We heard you.
Yep, we sure did. I love those ideas, and we have some extra staff available, either volunteers or Gov Trek committee members that could, if we can create these separate rooms, we could join them there, if that helps. Anyway, we'll get back to you on that. So session 2 is coming up this Saturday. Again, it's from 10 to 12, and from 10 to 11:15, we have some wonderful speakers, and they'll be covering topics such as Government 101, how does local, state, and federal government work? So we have at least 4 different speakers, actually 5, because two are doubling up for one session. So we have 5 speakers in that time frame, and then we will go into just a 10-minute overview that I'll provide to the students before they go into their breakout rooms. So we really haven't done that with them yet. And a couple of students have written to us asking about it. Like, so what's required? What are the requirements for completing this program? Well, I will go into as much detail as I can between 11:15 and 11:25. And so it'll be fresh in their minds, and then we'll send them off, and you and your teams off into the breakout rooms. And during my, sorry, I didn't say this, but during my, in my overview, I'll provide them with access to those links again, the public facing links for students, so their project description, the campaign simulation description, everything that's available to them. And they will have that in front of them as well. We'll announce the campaign roles, because we will be assigning those, and explaining that there's a deadline to submit their campaign simulation. So they should have everything they need to understand, to complete the project by the deadline, which I believe is March 18th.
Shauna, can we share the roles with the facilitators as well?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want to do that, or do you want me to?
But we can talk about that after here. I don't care who does it, but somebody, I think we should.
Oh, you mean share that document?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
So then the breakout room is really 30 minutes. And do you have I can't remember, the materials have a description of what you want the facilitator to do in that 30
Mhm.
minutes.
Yep, we do. Can we look at that activity guide quickly? That might be helpful on the web, and it's on the website, yeah. So, yep, so 211, yeah, there we go. So that's the session we're talking about. And in this session, we want the girls to familiarize themselves with the campaign roles, start talking about the tasks that they'll be taking on in those campaign roles, and to actually begin working on their campaigns and their final projects. So as a facilitator, I would say, please ensure that you review these documents that were provided. You might give them 10 minutes to get familiar with it. That's my suggestion. And then open it up for discussion with them to agree upon their roles, because at this time they might feel that they're better suited for a different role, and that's where they can start doing some bartering or swapping. So really, yeah, so the 30 minutes may just be, get familiar with the project, get familiar with your roles, change roles if you want to. And I think if there's time left, this would actually be a great point, a part of the project for them to agree upon their campaign strategy and issues, right? What are their top 2 issues? Or top 2 or 3 issues that they want to address in this campaign? What role is their candidate going to play? And all of that is in I think if you scroll down, Sandy.
Oh, sorry. I
It's
thought
okay.
it was.
It's either in the next session or it's in their project description. And I apologize.
Yeah, so session 3 just says to work on it.
Okay.
But
So it's in their project description then, is where it says what they need to do as a team before they break out into their roles. So this is it right here. Define your campaign strategy. They can start on this. So what position will your candidate run for? And there's some scenarios below. What you stand for, what is your platform, 2 or 3 core issues you're addressing, and then something, what's going to make their campaign unique, right? This is a competition, so is any election. Like what's unique about your approach to these issues, the universe of voters that you're targeting and why, what is your message to those target voters, and your campaign slogan. So that not all of this will come out of your February, this coming Saturday, February 11th, but I think that the probably the first 4 bullets there should come out of the first session. And right, just to give you the scenarios that the girls can choose from, like this is what they need to become familiar with, and you too, just so you know what they're looking at, what they're deciding on. So we put into 2 scenarios here. One is the candidates running for elective office in local government or in state government, and they're representing their, just to give it a consistency, they're all representing approximately 500,000 residents. The incumbent is retiring and is endorsing your opponent, a white man about your age. Your opponent votes against the issues you stand for. Address 2 or 3 of the issues at an upcoming event where your candidate will also speak to an audience sponsored by a nonpartisan group. Your opponent and other candidates for other elected offices will also be present. So that's the first scenario. They could choose 1 or 2. The second one is running for a congressional seat in federal government. So if your young students are really, really ambitious, I'd love to see them run for federal government. And for a Senate seat, you're representing the state of your choice. You're representing a district, approximately 931,000. Yeah, 931,000. I found that in my research, that each congressional seat is, someone's shaking, Maylee's shaking her head, that they're required to have that many residents. You have advanced from the primary election and are now running in the general election. You can be the incumbent or the challenger. Your opponent is a white man significantly older than you, and your opponent votes against the issues you stand for. Address 2 or 3 of the issues at the upcoming event. Okay, and the rest is the same as I read before. So that's their choice. They can run for local, state, or federal office. And as a group, I think it makes the most sense as in that first half an hour and maybe the second half an hour on the following Saturday. As a group, they're deciding on their campaign strategy at that point. What is it? They're all supporting the candidate essentially, because this is a campaign team. So as a group, what position is the candidate running for? What's their strategy? What are their top issues? Can they come up with a catchy slogan or again, how do they differentiate themselves? And I think once they agree upon these things, and who their target voters are, we're also asking them to choose, that should be in here too, that also asking them to choose a specific demographic, so that it's not so general. It's either youth, I think it's a Hispanic demographic, it's seniors, it's veterans. They can choose a specific demographic to target. And I think that's the last point. And so again, as a group, they're deciding on this. And they're having discussions about it. And as a facilitator, I hope that you can guide that discussion to the point where they make some decisions fairly quickly, right?
We won't have the hour for the stump speech. Is that the 3rd session?
So this is the student's project description. This isn't, right? Yeah. This isn't the facilitator guide. This is for them to understand how long we anticipate it to take them to complete a stump speech and record it. Mm-hmm.
So does that mean that when you say 1 hour, that it should take them 1 hour to complete that task? Is that just the time that they're given, at the session, or does that include time they may spend together? Or what does that 1 hour mean?
Yes. Overall time in the program to complete. So if you are the communications director and speechwriter, or you're the candidate, because we put the 2 roles right there next to write your stump speech. If you are in those roles, it should take you an hour to write your stump speech and record it for your final project. And that hour could be across a few Saturdays or 2 Saturdays.
So you're anticipating this to be done offline? Oh, you said 2 Saturdays. So you mean in the 3rd session? Because we don't have an hour in the 2nd session. Right.
We have about 45 minutes, I think, in the 3rd session, and in the complete session for session number 4.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know if it helps, but kind of like I put it in 2 buckets. Like this document is for the students, and then the facilitator guide is for the facilitators.
But the facilitators should be familiar with what the students are trying to do. So you have all of these roles so that when you're talking about these individual jobs, some of them can be done in the group and some of them they can work on outside of the group. But I would think that you're laying out the program, or they're laying out the program. They have to decide some of these pieces and then they can go off and do work on them.
Mhm.
Right, so they need to decide what their campaign speech is going to be about. What are their topics and as a group, and then the communications director, speechwriter can go off and do work on it, bring it back for the candidate to review.
Right.
So Aileen has a question.
So, as a facilitator, I could see how we could really bring the group along, but then they're not leading the discussion. They're not one of them. Yes, there's two ways you can go about this. One is that the facilitator says, okay, I recommend that the first thing you do is choose which of these scenarios.
Mhm.
And then you only give them, and you say, well, you know what, we need to move on to the next thing. So, quickly make that decision by voting or whatever. And then the next question you really need to look at is blank. And you can lead them through that, and you can get through a lot more than if you leave it up to them to lead the discussion. And so my question is what do you want us to do? Because I could see getting through this work if we are pretty prescriptive about the amount of time and we're the time check. But if you leave it to them,
Right.
it'll be more difficult. But that also in real life, you don't have someone like us telling. I mean, we're not in the campaign. We're just these people from the outside who are looking in.
Right. Well, no, I'm glad you said that, and you said it very well. I think this age group does need nudging like that and keeping them on task. And that's what the facilitator's role is. So if you're asking for an answer, I would say yes, please keep them on task and keep them moving along. Otherwise they'll get too hyper focused on one thing. I know they will.
Mhm.
And real world, I don't know. I mean, if they were over 18, maybe we wouldn't give them as much guidance and be the project manager, so to speak. But considering their age, I think as a facilitator or a mentor, we definitely should keep them on task.
Well, even if they're over 18, the very first go around for any individual, female or male, it helps to have guidance.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question about the role of the candidate student? That person is the one normally that would be directing their campaign, saying what they're going to speak. So other than, they're not going to be speech writing, they're not going to be doing an outreach thing. So their role should be to facilitate, to be the candidate and, be directing their group of staff. Isn't that their role?
Well, that's actually a good point. Isn't it? I think it's more the campaign manager that's doing. The campaign manager, and possibly the candidate. But
Do we have a campaign manager? We have a candidate, 2 speech writers, 2 outreach people, and 1 campaign manager. I don't have it in front of me.
Yes.
There is a role.
Yes.
Okay. So that person would be the facilitator, possibly, and the candidate would be the decision maker after they agree on 2 issues or whatever they're going to do, right? They're going to assume roles. So how do you divide up this session to make sure that they understand, initially they're kind of selecting some of those things, but then they're going to assume a role and play that role. So I don't see that, how that's playing out in this second session to get that to happen.
Well, okay. So you're asking specifically about the campaign manager's role.
No,
right?
I'm looking here. You want them to they're going to pick their roles. Then they have to have a position for their candidate to run on, what they stand for in a platform, and 2 or 3 core issues. Once they've decided that as a group, are they not going to switch and assume the role that they've been assigned and start working on their project? So I think that needs to be somehow, they need to understand that's the process. And maybe that 45 minutes needs to be divided up, and so that they don't spend too much time on the first 4 points and and don't get off and really establish the rapport to get the rest of their work done, to get their assignments.
Okay,
You understand?
I do.
what
I
I'm
do.
saying? I
Yeah.
think it's 45 minutes is a really short time to accomplish both of those things.
Well, and
So
you only
without-
have 30.
Yeah,
30
well,
minutes.
without a real conscious direction at the beginning to make sure that they understand the timeline, I don't think it will happen. So that's where a little facilitation from the adult could happen.
Absolutely.
Direct-
Yeah, to
A little
set,
directed facilitation would be needed here to accomplish that, I think.
absolutely. Yep. To establish the expectations. This is what's going to happen, and then you guys will break off into your teams, or not teams. I'm sorry, into your roles. Mhm.
But we're discussing it today, but there are the 8 people that are are the 8 people that have been selected to be there every week on this call now, so they kind of understand what's going on.
We could go back to that slide and look. If not, we will send the recording.
Let's do that outside of this meeting, because if they're not here,
Just
it
some
doesn't
good-
matter. I mean, we'll have to follow up with them.
Yeah, some good direction would help them if they're not here.
Yeah.
Mhm, definitely. And then can you scroll a little bit, Sandy, since you're driving?
There are some questions.
Oh, yes, there are, aren't there? Okay, Charmin.
Nancy has her hand up.
Oh, Nancy, I didn't even see
You
your
want to
hand.
finish your thought before we go to the questions?
I was looking for where the campaign manager was listed on
Up at
these
the
different
top.
roles. Okay, so that's the only one, is doing this. Okay, so when you're in your first meeting with,
Yeah.
when the first meeting with the campaign manager or with the team, and when you're deciding on your strategy, and maybe those first 4 points, if you can get that far, it's probably good to communicate to that campaign manager that she is the person that is pulling all of these different pieces together and making sure that it'll come together at the end of this project. So maybe the facilitator needs to work with that campaign manager more than anyone else, really, to understand their role. Like they are the role. They're the supervisor, campaign supervisor. And then I'm not sure if I think it was Regina that was talking. If you only get through those first 4 points on this coming Saturday, then the campaign manager and the candidate could finish up the remaining points. I could see that happening as well, because the other girls will go off and start their individual tasks.
Nancy has her hand raised.
Just a couple of comments. I think we need to remember that the overriding purpose of this Gov Trek is to interest the students in career fields in various areas. So I would hope that all the students in one group have their antennas out for all the roles, not just their own. And the other thing is they will be judged, I believe, on whether or not the campaign supports their overriding theme and whether they work together as a cohesive unit. So basically, the team has to work together, and the speech maker, for instance, and the campaign manager have their specialty, so to speak, but they're all supposed to be on the same page, communicate with each other, and have supporting messages or tasks that will show a cohesive campaign with the same theme. So basically, I think as we are talking about these different roles, everybody should be also on the same page in terms of what is the message they're trying to support. And of course, the people who are assigned the roles will basically do the legwork of that component.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. Right. The consistency, brand consistency, or consistency with the messaging. Yeah.
Joanne has her hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. I may have missed this, and I'm sorry if I did. Are the students getting this rubric ahead of time? Okay, so they could, oh, thank you.
Yep, and I will remind them to read it before Saturday. I'd be happy to.
Are some of these
Haley?
students grouped by geographic area that would make it easier for them? I had three, or I had, in last time I had 4 people. 2 of them were for Elk Grove, but I noticed on the list of students, there were 6 Elk Grove students enrolled. So if all 6 of them could be a campaign team, if they all, I don't know if they were all supposed to be assigned to the same room the first time or not. But there were 6 available Elk Grove students signed up on the list. So I just thought maybe the 6 of them would be a campaign group.
Since we're doing this virtually, is that, how does that help?
Oh, well, they might know each other. I think maybe the 2 of them knew each other.
Well, also, if they decide not to go for Congress or not to go for Congress, if they decide, it would make it easier to decide to run a local campaign.
Okay, I guess, Shawnee, you can take that into consideration.
Okay.
I think the teams have already been defined, and I'm not sure if we have time to redo them in this
No, I was
year.
just curious
but
whether that,
we'll take that
whether-
down.
I didn't know whether you tried to do that initially. It doesn't really matter. It just was if there were, since people were recruiting these, obviously somebody recruited 6 students from Elk Grove. So that would have been a nice team.
But would that give them an unfair advantage versus kids that cannot have that instant communication?
Oh, I don't think so. They're all going to do it virtually.
Aileen, you had a question?
Yes, after the last session, we asked whether or not it was allowable for the girls' contact information to be shared with each other. What did you decide about that in terms of doing work in between sessions?
It's optional. It's allowed, right?
I think what we said was if the girls want to exchange information, they can, but we would not necessarily be sending out a list to everybody. So that there are some students whose parents don't want them to share their information, and they would be in control of that ability.
Okay, and then my second question has to do with if a campaign team is going to work in between sessions and they want to ask the facilitator to give feedback on a product, can we do that, or is that considered kind of unfair if we provide feedback to them outside of the regular sessions?
Shauna, that's a question for the Gov Trek team.
I think it's completely fair. I think it's fair if the student taking that optional choice to do extra work outside of the campaign team and you've shared your contact information with them. I think that's fine.
We just probably don't want to write it for them.
Can we offer? Can we
Cassie
offer
has
to do
her
that?
hand up. Shauna, Cassie has her hand up, has for a while.
Okay, look, can we finish? Yeah, well, let's finish this discussion before we move on. I think we're almost done with it. So,
What was your question, Aline? You said, can we write it for them?
No, can we offer our assistance in reviewing their work in between the sessions? Can we offer it, or we only can respond affirmatively if they ask us?
I think it would be wonderful if you offered it. I think that'd be great.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shauna, Cassie McDuff has had her hand up for quite a
Okay,
while.
Cassie, how can we help you?
Yeah, hi. I thank you, Erica, and thank you, Shauna. I was unable to attend the first session, so I don't know how things worked in that one. But do we have a roster of the girls who are assigned to each breakout room, to our particular breakout room?
We have not provided the list of girls. What we've provided is the room number. Do you want the list of girls once they're assigned? Because we're, just so you know, Cassie, we're reassigning the teams from the first Saturday, because there were some no-shows and teams that were too small. So we're reassigning them.
Yeah, I did hear that. But
Okay.
what I wondered is, for example, I'm room 7. So will I and Erica, who's also in room 7, have the roster of the girls who we can expect to see in our room? I think it would be helpful just to be more personal, because, you know, if we're expected to, you know, have them introduce themselves and then try to remember who's who, I think it's a lot easier if we just can look at the names. You know, if you need to make it just the first names, fine. But that's one request I would make. And then second, I agree with the facilitator who said that, you know, it would make sense to have the girls from one region work together. For example, you know, I'm the public policy committee chair, and we had planned to do Gov Trek as a branch. We thought we were going to do a local program, and then it was turned into a statewide program. So I was hoping that we would have the Redlands girls with the Redlands facilitators, because we can establish an ongoing relationship with them and, you know, follow up with them to see if the Gov Trek made a difference in their lives.
Well, we do have a plan to provide you with the list of girls that come from your area, your community, after the program. So you will have the opportunity to reach out to them and start building that relationship with them.
But we won't have worked with them, which is what I was thinking would be productive.
I can't commit to that right now, but when I am working on that list tonight, because we will have it for you tomorrow. So let me take a look and see what I can do, because we also have to slice and dice the data by the girls' preferred campaign role, and then by facilitator availability. You know,
I see.
So I will look at that though.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of pieces to move around the chessboard. So yeah, I would appreciate that, because, you know, we really were very eager to do this as a branch, and yeah, we'd like to make it an ongoing thing, regardless of what happens this year. So second, I don't know if anybody is monitoring chat. It doesn't seem like anybody is, but I had said in there that I will not be available for this coming meeting. I have a long planned retreat for the board of the nonprofit that I'm on, and I have to be at that retreat. So I will only be available for the following 2 sessions and then the first half of the final session. So I apologize for that. You know, it's just a matter of timing. But I don't know if that's anything that anybody there is keeping track of, but I did want to let you guys know what my schedule is.
Okay. So not available this coming Saturday, but you are for the next 2.5.
Correct. 2.5. Thank you.
Okay. Got it, Cassie. Thank you. And wait, one more question. Did you say that what is your community? You said from
Redlands.
Redlands.
Okay. It's Southern California, inland, San Bernardino County, Redlands.
Got it. Okay.
I think we have 3 girls signed up from our area.
Okay. Thank you.
Aileen?
Yes. Well, first of all, I should have said this in the beginning. Shauna, I just really appreciate everything you and your committee have done. I mean, this is a tremendous amount of work to even get to the point of kicking it off, and then all the feedback and incorporating people's ideas, and it's just amazing. And so I hope you don't take it personally when people make suggestions, because we really appreciate everything you did.
Thank you. I'm just
And-
hoping that we can scale this next year a lot easier, right? Now that we have the processes down and maybe we've hit some bumps in the road, but we're working that through right now, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
And then the second question, just a little point, is that I noticed in some of the materials, there's reference to project rubric. And I think that's the project description. But I just want to make sure because I think that could be a little confusing when we're referring to documents. I think there's one there's a judging rubric where the word rubric is used, but that's not used in terms of the project description. Am I correct?
Yes, you are. I originally called it rubric, and then our communications team changed it to project description. Did you find it in the document itself? Maybe
Yes.
we should update
If
it.
you look at
It's in the name of the document, Shauna.
Okay,
The description matches what's on the website.
okay.
The document name did not get changed.
Is that what it was, Eileen?
Well, also in the breakout room facilitator instructions for the second session,
Mhm.
there's a reference to project rubric. And so at least in that place, there was an inconsistency. And just so that we're all clear, because I think it would be very confusing if we refer to these documents not using the correct name when we talk with the students.
So I think in this document, it says a campaign project description, which does follow what's on the website.
Yeah. In the
There's a
narrative below.
rubric.
If you
Where-
look at the narrative below, second
Yeah.
line,
Yeah, I see it now. Okay,
Okay,
okay.
thanks for
Thank you.
pointing that.
Very detail oriented.
So I do have one more question. This is Cassie. Will we have a similar follow-up to session 2 like this on the weekend preceding session 3? Because it would be very helpful to me to kind of be able to know how it's going since I'm unable to actually be there. If we can have this kind of, even if it's just a half-hour Zoom to talk about, how it went. Is that possible?
I'd probably be a good idea to do one more of these. At least, I mean, I'm not trying to limit it, but at least one more, sure, because we're just getting the students started on their projects.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. Thank you.
Would you be okay with that, Sandy, or?
Yeah, it depends on what date we choose.
Okay, okay. I know you're very busy.
Well, we're also launching Tech Trek, and yeah, there's a lot going on.
Wow.
We'll
So
try to
if it's
make
if it's
it
a
happen.
if it's a short one, maybe I could do it really anytime, evenings or Sunday or whatever you guys are available.
Okay.
We'll
Great.
take a
Okay.
look at that after this meeting and pull something together.
Sounds good. Thank you.
It's 4:00. It's after 4:00, and we still need to meet with the project team. And I know we continue to have questions. Before we go, does anybody want to learn how to share? That was your big question last week, and that was the reason that we got this group together. So I don't know if you can see on my screen. Can you see the meeting chat window? Is it show in the middle of the screen? No? Okay. All right. I turned on a feature that's supposed to show the Zoom windows, but it doesn't seem to help. So at the bottom of my screen, do you see something that says you are screen sharing, stop share? Do you see that on the bottom of my screen? No? Okay. So I think there are a couple of pieces of sharing that would be helpful to understand. So when you share at the bottom of your screen, if you hover, or it might be the top if you have an iPad, it kind of depends on what device you're using, but someplace if you hover, it brings up a black bar, and in the middle of that bar, there's a green button that says share. Does everybody see that? Is there
Yes.
anybody who doesn't see that? Is there
Yes.
anybody who doesn't see that?
Aline does not.
What do you see, Elaine?
And
So what happens when you hit that button? How do you get
What
your
I'm-
document?
What I'm looking
I
at
just,
is,
before we hit the button, I just want to know, can everybody find the button?
See the button?
I'm seeing the document on the, I think it's the facilitator instructions. That's what I'm seeing on the
Aileen,
screen.
At the-
take
okay,
your cursor,
I'm going to stop
take your
sharing.
cursor all the way to the bottom.
Okay,
Your
at the bottom of your screen, or it might be at the top of your screen, there is a green button that says share screen.
Yes, I see it.
Everybody see that? Okay. All right, so that's the first step. That would, if you click on that, it's going to open up, depending on what your computer has opened already, it's going to share, it's going to show you a bunch of boxes. And one of those boxes should say screen, one of them says whiteboard, and then there might be other boxes below that that have individual documents loaded on them. Does everybody see the choices of screen and whiteboard?
Yes.
Anybody not see those choices?
I don't see whiteboard. Yes, I do.
Okay, well, you don't need whiteboard as long as you see screen.
Yes.
And if you have two screens on your computer, you might see screen 1 and screen 2. But it's a two-step process. The first is to click, well, threes. Click the share screen, click on, make sure that screen itself is highlighted. Okay, Nancy's sharing. Thank you. And then, so Nancy is sharing the whiteboard. So click on, make sure that screen is highlighted, and then in the bottom right corner, there's a blue button that says share. That's the key. A lot of times people will go to this and they'll highlight the screen and then nothing happens and they can't figure out why. So you have to hit the screen that you want to share, and then you have to hit the share button at the bottom. So Sandra looks like she is sharing. So she's sharing her desktop. Okay. So the other piece of this is, what do you want to share and how do you find it? Because what Sandra showed you right there was the desktop itself, right? That's the window that she shared. If you want to share documents, for instance, Shauna suggested she's going to put in the chat the documents that the students should be looking at, and we're going to remind them to review them. But let's say that you wanted to review a document with them. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to choose that screen, and then it pulls up my desktop. And my desktop is open to Google, to my Google Drive, okay? If I didn't have this, well, I probably have 8 million windows open, so I'm a really bad example. But let's say that, like Sandra had, this was my desktop, right? And so if you don't have any windows open, it's going to go here, and then you have to open a window. So I'm going to go to my internet, and then these are the windows that I have open in my internet. And you could go to, if you wanted to look at those documents, you could go to AAUW California, and you could go to Programs and Gov Trek, just like I did when I was sharing earlier. And you could go to this piece here, and then you could go to the Facilitators Guide, Training Materials, and you could say, okay, let's look at the judging rubric, or whatever document you want. And then when you open this, it is shared on your screen. Okay? So I'm going to suggest, if you have time, that you each try that. So Sandra, why don't we start with you? Why don't you share your screen and then try to share a document?
Can we do this screen sharing while we're in the breakout room?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So Sandra, I can't hear you. I think you're talking to me, but I can't hear you.
My computer's so slow. I
Oh.
have to bring up my browser and everything. So wouldn't you want to have it?
You can have it ready to go. Like I had
Yeah.
all those windows open. Yeah, you can have it ready to go.
I would have to
And
do
then-
that. I don't want to waste your time, but
Okay. All right.
I'll load it on to, before the meeting. So I have all
Okay.
that.
Is there anybody else who wants to practice sharing their screen while we're here?
I wanted to mention, I have 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 desktops open at any one time because I try to keep, my projects that I'm working on in one desktop. If you have that many documents open, it can be very difficult to find the particular document that you want to share. So what I do is I try to anticipate before my Zoom meeting which desktop I will be Zooming from. And I open whatever documents I want to be sharing before the meeting, so that those are the ones that appear topmost when I hit share, and I have all my choices there. That just
Great
makes
idea.
it easy.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's what
I
I
do
would
that.
do. Load them all up
Yes.
before.
Yeah. Is there anybody else who is concerned about sharing and wants to practice it today?
So I have a question. If I schedule a Zoom meeting, and it's just me, can I do this practice by myself?
Yeah, yes, you can. You won't be sharing with anybody, but yeah, the share button works and you can practice it there.
Okay, because that's what I'll do.
Yep.
I'll just practice speak and on my own. I don't want to bother you guys with
Okay.
all of that.
Okay, well, that's why we're here. So I want to make sure next week or this weekend, when you go to share, that you can and that you're not, doesn't drive you crazy, because we only have 30 minutes. And this was one of the things that you said was most challenging. So if you're okay with it, that's fine. If you have problems during the week and you want to send me a note, let me know that. Aileen, if it doesn't work, let me know and I'll try to jump on a call with you and see if we can't practice it.
Okay, thank you very much. You're very
Sure.
kind.
And I cut off Nancy a little while ago, I think, when I started talking about this. Nancy, I think you had your hand raised about another topic, and I kind of slipped in here and said, let's do the sharing thing. So do you have a topic you want?
Well, I can't remember, but I put another comment though. What you did in terms of the example, I think is a great idea. And I was certainly doing it. I think it's a great idea for everybody. And that's have the AUW website page available. So then you can just scroll down to any of the rubrics, descriptions or whatever, because it will also show the students how to do it. And then you have it all handy so that was a great example, Sandy. That was
Especially
Well,
if your
me,
computer's
Haley,
slow.
but yeah, good. Or Sandra, yeah. Okay, well, I'll stop yakking now, Shauna, if you want to finish up. I just wanted to make sure we address that.
I think that's pretty much it for today's meeting. I will be working on assigning the teams and the remaining facilitators tonight, and we'll have that sent to you tomorrow along with the contact information. If you would like us to send you links or just a reminder where the documents are, we can do that as well. And
No, when you send that to us, will you also, excuse me, say which girls were assigned to what role? Will we have that ahead of time?
oh, that's interesting. Yes, we should provide that with you as well.
Yeah, you can just do it in one list, Shauna. We can have the girls in the room and what their role is. It's a great idea.
Okay, thanks, Erica. Thanks for suggesting that. Include roles. Yep. So you should have everything you need for Saturday. And
Just,
Oh.
yeah, it's OG, just one
OG.
fast, if I may, one fast question. In reading through the materials, maybe I missed it, but how far out are we from Election Day? So in terms of mapping a timeline, is it 6 months out or 9 months out? What's the assumption?
That's a good question.
I mean, maybe if you could think on it and then throw it into the stuff, the blast you're going to do with us this week, something like that, that'd be fine.
Okay. So you said 3 months out or 6 months out? Those
Well, I
would be-
was thinking either, I don't know. I mean, it's whatever you want. I should imagine it would be between a solid 6 and I would say like 9 months out, like it, you know,
Okay.
it'd be early on in the year, right? So you can kind of set yourself up. But I know you're assuming that they're going to come up with a timeline. So I just wanted to be sure that we have a shared anchor in terms of it's X number of months out from Election Day.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
You bet. Thanks. Great job, you all. Great job.
Yep. Thank you for your time today, and let us know if you have any questions. We will see you next Saturday.
Shauna, can the committee have a couple of minutes? Because I've got a question.
Of course.
which
Yeah, I
guess
think-
is a committee question.
I think we need
Thank
to.
you.
Thank you. Bye.